Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do, because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Well, hello there.
Hi. You know what I was thinking that we never do? Like
What?
most podcasts are like, welcome to the Widow We Do Now podcast. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel, and here's a podcast about blah, 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 blah. Here's another theme song. And you know what else we don't do, which I thought of this earlier today? You know, at the end of like Dateline or NPR, all of those fancy podcasts, they're like executive produced by, audio engineers. And I'm like, if we did that, we would have a whole list of like
Mel.
8 things and it would say Mel, Anita, Mel,
Just
Mel,
like
Anita.
Mel.
Produced by Mel and Anita. Anyway,
Yeah.
welcome to the Widow We Do Now podcast. I'm Mel Shore. Guess what? My birthday is coming up.
Happy birthday to
Woohoo.
you. I'm sure it's
Thanks.
going to be a blessed day.
I don't even have anything planned for it because I kind of don't care. Something is happening again. You know how we've talked about food, hunger cues and going through trauma and stuff, and I for so long have had no tie to food, like not on
Mm-hmm.
purpose. Well, I did have a tie to food for a couple months, and now it's gone again. So
Oh,
I think we should
that's
talk to
weird.
somebody. Yeah, interesting.
I always have a tie to food all the time.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing. So, okay.
Anyway, so that's going on with me, but I hear that you're going on a fun trip soon.
I am going on a fun trip, but before we talk about that, Mel, I've had the worst week.
Again?
Before we, not the worst week, but I've had a bad week. And it's really terrible and frustrating. I go through these periods where I just feel like the world is collapsing on top of me and I'm just not good enough to meet the demands that are placed upon me. And then I spiral into like a really dark, sad place. And I hate it when that happens, but it does. So, and then I want to just like turn inwards and not talk to anybody because I'm like, why would anybody want to talk to me about this? They'll just tell me like it's fine, you know, oh, you're doing great. You're doing great, Anita. And I'm like, that's not true.
Well,
So,
do you want me to tell you that you're sucking? Do you think that would help?
no, I don't know. No, probably not.
Okay.
But neither does just being like, no, you're doing a really good job. I'm like, but you don't know the truth. Like I'm hiding it from you is how it feels. Like you think I'm doing a good job, but I'm just tricking you. So I've
Yeah.
been like crying a lot and it's
Serious?
stupid. Yeah,
I
which
didn't
is
even
not
know
normal
any
for
of
me.
this.
It's because I don't talk to people about it.
Whoa.
I just like turn inside myself and hide from everybody, and it's terrible.
Guys, if Anita is crying, she's not okay.
I don't cry very often or very much, but
I'm
anyway.
sorry. And also, uh, you're alive. That's all I got for you.
Thank you, Mel. I appreciate it. Yeah, that was a statement of fact. I am still here. Um, yeah,
I
I
would
don't
like
know.
to ask you a few questions.
You may.
When you feel this way, what do you do?
Nothing.
Ever you don't go running? Is it
No, I
so much you
do.
don't exercise? Because that's your thing.
No, I still do that because that's like surpasses everything in my life. And it does make me feel better, but I don't really the one thing that helped this time, because I kind of feel like I'm on the upswing of this, is just reminding myself that the times I feel like this, it doesn't last forever. And knowing that I've been through it before. And so it's like, there are going to be times when you don't feel like this. So just remember that you're going to come to one of those times again.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've been. And also, I'm just like, it usually means that I need to sleep more, or I'm like, I need to back off on something because it's
Licorice?
like, yeah, no, never. Get thee hence, Satan.
Ah,
Never back off on the licorice. But I don't know. Because sometimes I get the feeling like I'm not doing enough. And so then when I tell myself that I need to back off, I'm like, I'm already not doing what I should be doing. Like, I'm not doing enough. So I can't take other stuff away. So,
it's such a hard balance. Yeah, because
yeah,
sometimes things that can provide relief are subtraction. Sometimes it's addition. Sometimes it's like
it's like,
medication.
I was going to say it's trigonometry, which is not true. Trigonometry is never the answer to
I
anything.
never got to that point in math. Thank goodness.
Oh, I feel like you had to, Mel.
You know
No?
what? Somehow I got under the radar and I didn't have to take any math past 10th grade.
Cool.
And I don't know
Well,
why. But I didn't need it. I'm a musician. So then in
I feel like
college, I was in class for math for
math
non-smart
people.
majors. It was my favorite class. They're like, you are going to buy a car. Here is the interest rate. What is your payment? I'm like, see, this is practical.
Now you just put that in the internet,
Practical math.
for dummies.
What's
Is
your
that what it's called?
practical math for grief
Hmm.
or practical math for self-esteem or the widowed mom or a human in general?
Yeah. I think it's like the cosine over the tangent
Yeah, with your
is what
TI
you're supposed to do.
85 calendar, playing that
Calendar?
worm game. Or not calendar, calculator. Obviously, you can tell that my brain's working.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
I'm
know. It's going to be
mm,
okay. I know it's going to be okay, but it's just hard. It's hard to be, like you said, it's hard to be a human, and then it's hard to be a widowed human and a widowed parent or a widowed non-parent. And it's just like, and it's always, and I think you're going to agree with me, Mel. It's always when you start to feel like, Kim, doing like we're doing good. And then, I don't know, out of the blue, the thing that kind of set it into motion was that I was putting my youngest to bed, who was 2 when Jason died, and now he's 7. And he said, I'm so sad I didn't really get to know dad. I don't really have any memories of him. And I just
oh,
started bawling. And usually I can just like deal and roll with those kind of things. But I was like,
yeah.
you are right. That is such a ripoff. Like, why is this like what we're dealing with? And why do you not get to know your dad? It was so sad.
I'm so you look like you're actually gonna cry again right now.
I am like, I feel so many emotions right now, and it's horrible, and I hate it. And I just wish I didn't feel those emotions, but there you go.
Do you want me to try and tell you jokes?
No.
Well, I have a joke for you.
Okay, tell me.
Okay, this is the only joke I know. It's a musician joke, but
Oh
maybe you'll get
gosh.
it.
Okay, I hope
What's
so.
okay? You know, like a big band, like a big jazz band, like 20
Okay.
people in it. There's horns
Hmm.
and whatever, saxes, rhythm section. Okay. And
Is there a
usually
tuba?
there's a conductor. No, there's not a tuba,
Dang it.
but
Okay.
there can be if you want.
Okay.
What's the difference between a band and a bowl? Like bowl, like the charging bowl, like the
Oh,
animal.
oh, oh. I don't know. Tell me.
Okay, I have to preface this with there's a swear. Sorry, Mom, although you don't listen, I don't think. With a bowl, the horns are in the front and the asshole's in the back.
I get it. That's funny.
Thanks. Did that solve all your problems?
It did.
Okay,
It
good.
did solve all my problems.
That's what I'm here
Um,
for.
I know. Good job, Mel. My second son also said the cutest thing the other day that was death related, but in fifth grade, they do a wax museum. So I picked him up from school and he was in the car with me and he goes, Mom, if the wax museum's coming up and I have to choose the person that I'm going to be, and they have to choose a historical person, I think they're supposed to be dead. And he said, do you think I should do dad? And his brother did Jason, which was kind of like not in the rules, but like the teacher was not going to say no to him.
Right.
So anyway, he goes, do you think I should do dad? And I was like, well, you could, or you could choose somebody else to do if you wanted to. And he goes, oh, I know. I'll be Aunt Kaylin, who was my sister who
Oh.
just died, which was so cute. And I had to work so hard not to pull a face because I'm just like, you're going to dress up like my dead sister. Okay, that's fine. He's like, why are you looking like that, Mom? I'm like, that is such a sweet idea. And he goes, oh, I could be both of them. I'm
Wait,
like,
half
this
and
just
half?
yes.
That's the best.
I'm like, this just keeps getting better.
Can he also incorporate Scott? Somehow he can be three.
Yes. It was just like he just had the answer to the question. Like, I'm going to be all the dead people I know.
I love that.
And then I'm also like, but why do you know so many dead people? You know?
Yeah, and you're so tiny.
Yeah. I don't
Well, I
know.
hope that the cycle continues to upswing and you feel less
Yeah.
trashy. Sorry about that.
Yeah. We are going to go on a trip, like you said. We are going to go to Texas.
Good.
So we're going to go see the eclipse, which we saw the last one with Jason when he was alive. So that should be interesting
Oh
too.
yeah. Well, I hope that you have a lovely time with limited difficulty.
Yes, thank you. And Mel,
Yeah,
you've been like super busy doing jazz
I
stuff
know.
everywhere.
I'm tired. It's
Are
hard.
you going to be done doing like is that like a seasonal thing or is that just an all the time now forever and ever more?
Well, it's been our first year of Jazz Mentors Foundation, and so now where we're at is meeting with the board to see how it can continue. I mean, it does pair along with the school year with some of the concerts and the
Oh,
offerings, but as it grows, there are going to be more things that are available year round. So, I mean,
so it's going to get busier?
well, with expanding things, like the hope is to find funding and get grants because there's a whole thing. Here's a nonprofit 101, everybody. If you've been, at least I know in Utah, like if you've been around as a nonprofit established for a year, you can apply for certain grants within the state. And then there are other grants that are education based in the arts that you can apply for after a couple of years. You just have to like take people's stats and like, okay, here's our demographic information. Here are how many kids are coming from this school. Here's, this and that. And so ours, it integrates school kids, school music students in the education portion of it. But then there's also patrons that are not even connected to any school because we have a clinic in the day and then we have the concert with the artists at night. So, I mean, I think all that I would be able to do would be part-time because if I'm full-time, my regular job is being a musician. So I would take myself out of circulation. So,
Yeah,
so the hope would be I don't get busier
but the
and we can
foundation
have
does. Yeah.
staff. Yeah. So like initially it's like, well, you usually don't have a ton of money to hire staff. So everybody on the board pitches in and kind of does it volunteer. And then you grow and you get funding and you get grants and you get corporate sponsors and donors. And then hopefully with that, that's how it's continuing to run. Plus there's, because it's a nonprofit, people can volunteer. So, hey, if anybody wants to volunteer, it's not connected to widowhood, but it is volunteer, which
I got
helps
no
others.
skills for you
No,
in
all you
that
had.
arena.
Oh, you don't even need music skills. I mean, it's
Okay.
like spread the word, or it's like,
Oh,
it's stuff like, hey, do you want to pick up this artist from the airport and drive them to this hotel? I mean, it's like actual human skills.
yeah,
Nobody needs the skills that I have because, like, of the board, I'm the only one that has those. The rest have actually useful skills. So,
actually useful. Well, that's cool, Mel. I hope it grows. I hope it becomes something that's really like meaningful to you too, and not just like a stressor, you know?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like hopefully we can get more staff and we are growing and it's getting some traction and we're getting kind of some big name artists in the jazz world reaching out to us wanting to come be a part of our series. So that's a good sign. And also, when Scott died, a lot of things died with that. And I don't think all of those things were necessarily negative for me. So, for one, and I know a lot of our friends have had similar experiences, you have no energy. And so you have to have boundaries. Or if you don't have energy to have boundaries, you later gain some of those skills and saying like, no, here's what I'm able to do. And so I'm giving credit to the boundaries that I have learned from being a widow and having different circumstances and having to have to say no to stuff, to what I'm going to be able to do, in a work capacity for that. So I think that's a good thing. It's helping me to learn how to be a better leader, balancing different people's agendas, I guess,
Right.
and saying like what serves the actual mission. This is about students and making the community better. So I love the work that it is. I don't have any more hours in the day with what I'm doing. We
Yeah.
definitely need some staff. So not that anyone wanted to really hear my whole diatribe about this nonprofit, but yes, we are going to be having another season, and we are growing, and our board is expanding a little bit, and we're doing some shifting with that and gaining some staff. So yay,
That's
go
awesome.
Jazz!
Um, the people who are listening right now, do you know how you can help us? Did you wonder how you could help us? Because we need help. Um, if you're in the podcast world, then you have heard about the new iOS update that is really messing with downloads for podcasts. So across the board, podcasts are getting way less downloads, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but it becomes a big deal because that's how everything runs and works. It changes how people are introduced to the podcast when you search for it. It changes how much revenue you make off of the podcast and advertising. It's how you attract new advertisers. So it's a big deal, and it mostly affects people who don't listen to a few episodes and then they come back and listen to an episode. It used to download them differently. So on our Instagram page, we have a little instruction video that shows you how you can help. And if you just go find that, it walks you through how to change your download settings to hopefully help us with our download stats. So we would really appreciate if you went and did that and gave us a little help in that arena.
Also, do you guys like this podcast? We want to know. Is it something that's beneficial to you? It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
We have a lot of good friends that we've made from it, and we're hoping that we can continue going. And the algorithm issue isn't just for like, okay, cool, downloads. It's like if there are people that need to hear us because they're a widow and they can't find us, that's an issue. So, I mean, I typed in the word widow in podcast the other day, and we were like
77th on the list.
Yeah, 2 pages down. And so that's the thing where it's like, we're not trying to be like, oh, we have a vanity thing where we're like, we have to be number one. It's like, no, like there's a lot of time and effort, and people are donating to us. And so, that's something that they want their Patreon money to go towards, is helping other people, kind of paying it forward. So yeah, any little thing you can do to share the podcast anywhere, share it, like just send an episode to somebody, put it on social media, share our Instagram. That would be so helpful. It's all in an effort to help each other. So we would really love that. So thank you for listening.
Yeah, if you value the podcast, if it's helped you then it might help somebody else. So help us keep the good stuff coming out and moving forward. We appreciate you guys helping with that.
Speaking of Patreon, if you'd like to join, go to patreon.com/WWDN.
Yeah, you guys really help us to keep the podcast going, because like Mel said, it's a lot of work. And when you're a widow, you have to decide where your efforts are going to go. Like Mel was talking about her boundaries. So it helps us to decide how much effort to put into different categories of our lives. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are not able to be a patron, but you would like to donate a one-time donation, then go to buymeacoffee.com/widow we do now.
And if you don't want to do that, we would love a 5-star rating and a nice review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Yeah. Okay, Mel. I think we've given everybody all that they need to know. So let's just do this episode.
Join the Widow Wives Club, you guys, so that we can keep hanging out. Let's do it. Go to Facebook. Right.
Now can we do the episode, Mel?
Sure. Fine.
Okay. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
Okay, let's go. Bye.
Okay, bye. What do we do now? Bye.
Bye.
Produced by Anita Coyle and Melanie Shore. Sure. Okay, bye.
Audio engineering by Mel Shore. Editing by Mel Shore. Designed by nobody. That's all. Bye.
Wait, caterers? Nobody.
None.
Tacos. Okay, bye.
Bye. Okay. You guys, you don't know how hard it has been to talk to this person. The universe does not want us to speak. So we're really excited that we finally made it happen. This is our third try. And it's been all our fault. It hasn't been her fault.
No. Yeah. The first time we had technological issues. The second time, a death.
Yep.
And this is try number 3. Everybody, please knock on wood. Cross your fingers.
Pray for us. All right. Well, who have we got here with us today? This is Nicole. Nicole, tell us a little bit about yourself. Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts, and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC registered investment advisor.
I'm Nicole. I am 33 years old and I'm a widow.
And a story.
And there's a story.
Where do you live?
I live in Gilbert, Arizona, born and raised. And then I've lived in Gilbert for like 20 something years now. It's been a long time. It's it's relatively big, but it feels really small somehow. But it's a really charming, cute little place to live.
Nicole, are you always sweaty? Because that's how I would be if I lived in Arizona, like constantly.
Yeah. I mean, everybody talks about cold, right? You know, everybody talks about how Arizona, we don't know what cold is, whatever. But, you know, just like it's a dry heat, it's also like a dry cold. So like this winter has been brutal. Like your skin dries out. It's terrible. So, but then like right now it's beautiful. It's beautiful every day. It's like in the 70s right now. Yeah, I always say Arizona has a lot of the seasons. They just come way later. Like you won't experience all the leaves falling off the trees for fall until like winter comes. Doesn't make sense, but that's how it is.
So tell us a little bit about you, like what you do for a job, what you like to do for fun.
I don't remember what fun is.
That sounds right.
That's you know how the life goes after. So I recently, in October, started working at my daughter's school. So that was a big step getting back in because I had to quit my job after I lost my husband. So we always worked opposite from each other so that we would each be with our kids. And I always worked nights. And after he passed away, I had to leave my job. And because I just, there was no childcare. My daughter wasn't in school yet. So it was like this weird in between. And but once she started kindergarten, then I now am a paraprofessional and I work with kids with special needs. So
I had kind of the same thing. It was like my job was perfect because Jason would get home from school and then I would go to work because he was with the kids. And then then all of a sudden it was like, wait, no, now this is the very worst case scenario because now my kids are home and then I would be gone too. So although I didn't have to like quit my job, I just had to change my schedule. But still, I get you a little bit.
So tell us about this person. Who were you married to? Tell us your story, how you met.
So that's actually it's kind of a cute story. So, how many years ago now? It was about 2014 or so. And
I thought you were going to say 24 years ago, but okay.
No. But so I never did the whole online dating thing because I grew up in a time where it was like the in between where it was like still like don't talk to strangers online. Like, you would get in trouble for going on like AOL, AIM or whatever. And then you'd be talking to strangers. Oh yeah.
I remember those days.
How did that thing go? Is it ASL? You'd ask people one of those. So like, yeah, old. So the whole internet dating thing, now it's just like everybody uses the apps, but I never did it. And then I had a friend and her and I were both single moms. So a little backstory, I was 18 and I was pregnant with my son. And the dad, he's always been financially responsible, but we were both, kids, and he wasn't ready to have a child, let alone a child with special needs. So when I was about 26 weeks pregnant, I got an amniocentesis because they saw something going on with his heart, and with that particular what do they call that defect? It was like 50-50 for Down syndrome. But because of my age, they were like, don't worry about it. But I'm the kind of person I like to know so I can plan and learn. So I got the amnio done and learned that he was going to have Down syndrome. And then also he would have heart surgery early in his life. So that all happened. And but then we flash forward to when I'm just a single mom. I have another friend who's a single mom. We are both same age, our kids same age, and we just drank a lot of wine one night and had a girly sleepover. It was one of those things where we're like, we're both gonna die alone if we don't throw something out there. So we both made profiles on Plenty of Fish, which I don't even know if that's even a thing anymore.
I think it is.
Yeah. I think it is too. I hear still about OK Cupid, but never like Plenty of Fish. But I always feel really old when I talk about that one. But so I made this profile. I didn't really, think anything would really come of it. I had one picture of my son, didn't have anything about Down syndrome, anything. I just had him like, this is my son. He's my whole world. And then I get this message from this guy and he's just like, does your son have trisomy 21? And I was like, yeah, why? And he was like, because my son does too. And so that's how we started talking. And then we met for coffee at this Starbucks. It used to be on Val Vista and Warner. There was a Target. And it was always kind of like a funny thing because for a while there was a Starbucks in the Target. And then right next door, there's like an actual Starbucks. And so we met there. And, that was it was the first guy I ever met on one of those dating profiles. And I got there first and I just waited and I was like, what is this going to be? Is he going to show up and not look like anything like the pictures? You hear all the horror stories. So then, he showed up, and then, there was like this thing where I went, this is too good to be true. How weird is this? Like he was 6 months younger, and which he never let me forget. And, but we always just, we would meet for coffee. So we met for coffee the first time, and then, I just kind of let it go. And then his birthday came around, and, we had friended each other on Facebook, and, I just threw out a happy birthday on his timeline. And then he messaged me, and then we went on this movie date, and we were both parents. So it was on a Wednesday. There was nobody around. The whole theater was completely empty except for the two of us. And we saw the movie. It was a Kevin Hart movie. It was Get Hard. And we were both just like in the middle, in these seats in the middle, and I had no idea he liked me. So that first coffee date, we had like two more of them, and it just nothing ever came from it, and I couldn't tell. He had like no game, and I used to make fun of him all the time once we were together. Because I had no idea he even liked me like that. He would just, and then we'd go back and he'd say things like, well, you were talking about wanting to like work out and stuff. And we were talking about doing that together. And I was like, that doesn't count. Like there was nothing. But then we were in this movie theater, and he held my hand, and I was like, okay. And then after that, we started just hanging out, and we went on this really awesome random trip. He happened to, we ended up being kid free for just a weekend, and we ran away to San Diego, and we went to Ocean Beach, and we got there at night, and it was my first time as an adult seeing the ocean. And so it was like this really magical time. We went for 4th of July weekend, and we had this where we just sat on the beach and watched fireworks, which was really cool. And we got back from that trip, and you think he would have asked me to be his girlfriend then? No, he waited until a week later. A week later, when we were doing nothing. And because I told him, I was like, I'm not the type of girl that, I'm just going to assume what's happening. If you want to date me, then you're going to have to ask me, so that's just how I am. And so then he finally asked me, and then we were just together from there. It wasn't long after that. I think it was only like 6 months that went by, and then we moved in together with both of our kids. So his son wasn't even 2 years old yet, and he had him like only a couple of days for like visitation at the time. And so it was just like this thing where, we had a lot of time to see each other in between, and really built up our relationship. But then, we moved in and combined everything. And I helped him go to court and do all that stuff. And we ended up getting his son for during the week so that he would go to school with us. And then mom would have him on the weekends. He was just a wonderful guy. Like you always say that, once you meet that person, like you just know. But it wasn't really like that. I think we were friends first, and, really built on that friendship, and really got to know each other and had so much in common. The whole reason we met was because of our kids. And then we moved in together, and it was like it was meant to be.
I love that he had to ask you to go steady, and that he just wasn't doing it. He's like, will you be my girlfriend after like forever and ever?
What if he said the actual words, will you go steady with me? Like in the 60s, wouldn't that have been so adorable?
Oh, he should have. No, he was just like, do you want to be my girlfriend?
I think they should bring that back, whoever they are, like the kitties. Yeah. Like, will you wear my pin?
Yeah.
And bye bye birdie,
My pin.
Grease.
And my Letterman's jacket.
Yeah.
So when he messaged you and said, does your son have trisomy 21? Were there like little weird fireworks going off in your brain because most people wouldn't say it that way. Like that's like either a really weird thing to say or a really knowledgeable thing to say.
It's like code, like you would know that he knew.
Yeah. Were you like, why are you saying it like that? Were you curious about that?
Yeah. So like at most I thought, he either maybe he's somewhere in the medical field, right? Using the proper terminology. Or I thought it could be he has somebody in his life because everybody knows somebody, and it's especially in Gilbert, a lot of kids with Down syndrome flock here. They have really great schools, really great special needs programs. So I just thought maybe he just knew somebody. I had no idea that he had a kid, and a boy. So it was strange.
Will you tell us a little bit about what it's like to be the parent of a child with special needs in your experience?
In my experience, I think there's it's not a lot of difference. I think, there's obviously you have to put more work into everything. Your child and you both have to work together with therapies and, teachers and everybody involved. It's like it is like a village. And they always say that with every kid it takes a village, but with a child with special needs, you need that village and some. So it's my whole experience with being a parent, especially a young parent, because I will tell you, having a child with Down syndrome first, it really teaches you how to, you know, it teaches you how to really advocate for your child, because people will look at you and think, oh, like here's like a young mom who doesn't know anything. And so it's a lot of that, but every little thing uh, is a celebration. So everything that a typical child would do, everything, the first steps, all of those first, they feel like you want to throw a party every single time because you see your kid work so hard to get there. And because my son because he had heart surgery at 5 months, there was like my whole, dive into motherhood was just being his nurse basically for that whole first time. It was like watching him decline because that's what happens. They wait until 5 months because everything has to get a little bit bigger in order for, the surgery to be at the best time to be the most successful it could be. So they do that, but you like watch, and like it would take him about like it would take him like 2 hours to finish like a very small amount of formula at one point because yeah. But I always laugh because do you remember the show Dinosaurs? Do you
Yes.
remember the baby, not the mama?
Yes, totally.
Yeah, okay. My son looked exactly like that dinosaur because of all the water retention.
Oh my God.
So he was so cute though. He has always had chubby cheeks, and so they were just huge. He could barely lift them to smile. But it was the best. But yeah, everything. Then you watch them go from getting off of oxygen and doing all these things, rolling over for the first time. But I will tell you, it took him until he was 3.5 to take his first steps, and I caught them on video, and I cherish that video. He was doing physical therapy, and you just watch him finally just take those steps, and it was just like because he was like walking around with a walker. They start school at 3.5. So that's like a difference. It's usually about 5 when kids start, unless they have preschool. But with special needs, they start early intervention at 3.5. So they go half days, and my son couldn't even walk yet. He was walking around with like this little toy walker around school,
They are
and
the cutest walkers, by the way. Like
Oh,
they're tiny and they're like, they're way
I
cute.
know. His
Did
was
he
like
have
an actual toy though. It wasn't
oh,
like it wasn't like a medical walker. He was attached to those like those walker toys that have like the toy that clips in on the front, and you can take it on and off, and it's like orange and blue, and I think they still make them the same. And he used that as his little walker. I have the cutest videos of him just, waltzing around the house with his little toy walker.
So I'm wondering, and maybe this wasn't your experience, or maybe it was, when you found out that he was going to have Down syndrome, did you have any sort of grief process through that your baby was going to have special needs? And Down syndrome has quite a big spectrum to it. There are kids who are highly functional, and there are ones who need a lot of support. Did you have any sort of hard feelings about that, to kind of accept that was going to be your life?
I did. Yeah. They always say that when you have a child with special needs, it's a mourning process that it comes just like regular grief. It comes in waves and at different times. So, little things you don't even think about, at all different years. It's not just like once and done. I mean, when I first found out, I mean, I was pregnant and obviously very hormonal, and being my first and everything else. So it was like,
and you're 18,
and I'm 18,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I there was like 3 days where I was a disaster. I did not get out of bed, and it was like my child died. Like there was like a part of like it's like you mourn the entire life they would have had, and that's just how it works. You just have to get through that. So it was like a 3-day period where I just didn't get out of bed. I barely ate, and it took family and good friends to get me out of that. And then yeah, and then there's little things here and there, starting just everything a typical child can do. There's like little parts of it that I mean, some things take a lot longer, just to get there. And it's always hard to gauge. Like when you look at a kid, like my son now is 14. So you look at a 14-year-old, kid who's a typical child, and you see where they're at as far as speech, as far, what they're physically capable of doing, all these things. You look at it, and I see his peers, every day when he goes to school, I see all the kids his age and what they do, what they're like. And I also have a very, dear friend who her daughter is the same age, and it's just like that. You see all the things, you see what their relationship is like, and it is very different. So every so often, I get a little sad about where he's at and where I want him to be, but that's just part of it.
Yeah.
Did we ask you yet, or did you tell us what your person's name is?
No.
What
No.
is his name?
It's Adam.
Okay, Adam. Okay, so you and Adam start dating. You figure out that you're dating, or have the conversation.
Going steady now.
Going steady. And then you live together. What year was this that you guys got together?
So where would it be? I have an app for that.
Okay. How old were you when you guys got together? Do you remember?
24. I think it was officially 24. It was his 24th birthday. Yeah. So
Okay.
24.
Okay.
So doing now.
So now you're co-parenting and parenting 2 kids with Down syndrome, and going to court advocating for the usual things for your kids, right? With healthcare and schools, and then the court stuff. When did you get married?
So it took him a long time to get there.
We've
so
established
just like
this.
Did you ask him?
No. He was very traditional. He was like, so that very same friend whose daughter is the same age as my son proposed to her husband. And at the time, like, because I never wanted to get married. I was one of the, like, it was never a goal. I feel like my life has always gone that way, where I never wanted to be a mom until I became one. And then once we were together, I never wanted to marry anybody. And then something happened. I don't know what happened. I woke up one day And I was just like, I want to be with you forever. Like it means something. Before I was just like, oh, it's a piece of paper. It doesn't matter. Who cares? And then I don't know, you're with somebody and then something happens and you're like, I want to be with you. And that's it. And so, but it took him forever. I mean, it just took him, and he was always that type of person where it would take him forever to ask things or do things. And, but I mean, I waited and it took us, we got married on our 6-year dating anniversary because he also sucked with dates. So I figured I'd make it easy.
How much older is your son than his son?
So let's see, about 3.5 years. So his son just turned 10 in March, and my son turned 14 in August. So he was 2000 and my son was born in 2009. His son was born in 2013.
So you're married, having your life. Things are going along. Obviously, you're here on a widow podcast. Can you tell us what happened? Take us up to that point.
Okay, so we only got to be married. We only got to be married for a year. So we were, yeah. So we were together all that time, and we only got our first anniversary together. So we made it to 7, and then which was in July, and
This last
then
July.
would have been our, yeah. So well, so we were married July 2021.
Okay.
Yeah. And we only got to make it to our first anniversary, and then he died August 19th.
That's
Yeah.
rude.
So I know. So what happened was, so he had worked at this lighting company the entire time we were together, which is actually a really funny part. So when we first started meeting on these coffee dates, he was a manager for Little Caesars, and then he expressed interest in wanting to do something else, and he was so into anything with little parts, anything mechanical, very much that kind of brain, like he could take a car, apart and put it back together. And he should have been an engineer. I wish he would have gone through with it and done it, but he ended up, I had a friend who worked at this lighting company, and I asked, he was asking about, he mentioned wanting to work there. And I was like, how funny. I have a friend who works there, and I could ask him if he could, be a reference. And so he ended up getting a job at this place that I recommended. And it ended up like supporting us for the entire time we were together, which was funny. And then he switched jobs. And when he switched jobs, he got he got congested, and he kept thinking, this is allergies. He went to doctors, but I mean, this went on for like, I want to say it was like 4 months of him just being congested and miserable. Like they thought he got tested for valley fever, which is a thing here. He got an X-ray, and they checked his lungs, and everything came back fine. So they could not figure out what was going on, and still to this day, I don't know what it was. But they do all the usual things when there's, that with that type of stuff. Like they gave, especially since COVID and all that, they gave him an inhaler and breathing treatments, which I used to giggle at him doing his breathing treatments because it was his son's, and it was a penguin. Like it was shaped like a penguin. So it was like a child one. But so he was doing those, and he had a steroid inhaler. And we always used to talk about things, and like from when he was a kid, he had asthma. So like, in childhood, he had asthma. It was like a thing then. And then he grew out of it, which sometimes can happen. So in adulthood, nothing. Like he never had any sort of like, he didn't have an inhaler. He had nothing. So it was nothing. And a couple weeks before he died, he had the first asthma attack I'd ever seen him have. And so it was like a really scary thing. We were at his older brother's house, and he wanted my sister was in town from California, and I wanted her to meet my in-laws. So we were over there, and he wanted to stay over. And so I drove my sister and our kids home, and he was going to stay over, and they were going to go. They live like at the base of these mountains, and they were going to go and do like a ATV, all the dirt bikes, all that stuff. And I was going to go and pick him up the next day. And he got a ride from a friend, and he showed up, and it was really scary. He was like, I can't breathe. And like, it was this really scary thing where he just like ran in the house. My sister and I and the kids were just like around, and he had the steroid inhaler, and he, took some of it, but it passed. So, obviously whatever was going on it was starting to make his asthma come back. And so that was like a thing, but he didn't have another one, and he was fine after that. And I think that's the worst part of this is the first and only one I'd ever seen him have. He was fine, right? So it was whatever. So I told you we worked opposite. I used to actually work at a gym as a supervisor, and I used to work until 2 o'clock in the morning. So from 6 to 2 o'clock in the morning. But I left that job to work at Sam's Club so that I would get home. I would go in at like 3 and I'd get off at like 11. So this is important because on the day that he died, if I had worked at that gym still, I wouldn't have been there. So that's like it's a weird thing to think about. But anyways, a couple weeks go by. It's my son. I always say my because I'm used to saying that now because I'm a single parent again. But our son, it was his 13th birthday, and we I forgot to mention I have a daughter. I'm so sorry. So I don't know how I forgot to mention
little thing
with Adam. Right?
With Adam. We combined our family, and then we had one together. So
yeah, yours, mine, and then ours.
Yes, she's 6 now. And but yeah, so it's my son's 13th birthday, the day before he died. So it's August 12th. And that's his birthday. And that weekend so the day before he died, we had the most amazing day. We dropped my daughter off with my mom, and we just took the boys to this. It's like it's got like laser tag and
a fun center.
Yeah, it's a fun place. The next day, he says he's got a headache, right? And I'm thinking like, well, I mean, we were around like a bunch of lights and loud everything. Maybe that's what's going on because I also had a headache. So I was like, we're just probably old, and this is probably like an old people hangover, from doing like all these fun things, and he's surrounded by all this stuff. So I didn't really think that much of it. And then I went to work, and then I got home and did my usual thing. Usually I would get home and just, wind down, get ready for bed. And then I'd always stay up too late. And that's always how that went. And so I got into bed, and he was sleeping. And then he woke up, and he said that he still had a headache. And I was like, well, did you take anything? And, being the guy he was like, no. And I was like, okay. So I got up and I got him Advil, and he took it, and he went back to sleep. And I'm still awake at this point because it used to take me until at least like 1 o'clock in the morning to fall asleep. And then he gets up, and he's kind of just like he seems like he's having a hard time. So he got up and he started doing like a breathing treatment, which was, pretty normal in the middle of the night. And didn't really think of anything of it then. And then it just got progressively worse. But the thing is, he made it through the last one. So neither of us are freaking out, right? So we're like, this sucks. You're having an asthma attack, but the last one you took, your inhaler, and it went away. And so we're both just like, it's whatever. I was like, I can either call 911. I was like, or I could drive you, because I had called this ER ahead of time. The lady assured me, yeah, just, come right now, whatever. So I gave him the choice, which I kick myself for every day now. That guilt eats you alive. The hindsight is 2020 kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him, I was like, do you want me to call, or do you want me to drive? And he picked drive. So I'm throwing clothes at him. I'm getting our kids out of bed, and we're hauling over into the truck. And so I get behind the wheel of the truck, and something to know about me is I play music at all times. Like, everything in my life has a soundtrack. And I got in that truck, and we got our kids in that truck, and I just started going. And there was no music. There was no nothing. It was just silence. It was like this really strange coincidence. The place I ended up going, it ended up being an ER. It wasn't open though. There was nobody. Or not an ER, I'm sorry. It used to be open. Yeah, it was an urgent care, and they have like an emergency type deal, but it wasn't the one. It just happened. So when he lost consciousness, we were in such a rush, he didn't put on a seatbelt either. So he lost consciousness and went forward, and the screen in the truck is still shattered. So he hit it, and I was trying to keep driving, and I had to pull over. So I pulled over, and this medical center happened to be where we went for all of my daughter's appointments, OB appointments. So it was like weird coincidence that ended up being there. So I pull in, and the first thing I do is I get out, and I'm just screaming. There's nobody around. And I'm thinking, like, there's got to be somebody. Nobody. So I run back. I'm on the phone with 911. And all the commotion, I had hit the windshield wipers, and they just kept going. And my kids kept talking about the windshield wipers after. They were very focused on it. And I was on the phone, and I just grabbed him out of the passenger seat, and I lifted him onto the ground, and I started CPR. And from working at the gym, I had gotten certified. So I was doing CPR on the phone with 911, and this poor guy walks up with like a drink from a gas station in his hand, and he's like asking me what he can do. And I ignored him completely. Like, I was just like kept doing what I was doing. And I wish I could, I knew his name, because he tried to help. And then they showed up, and I just remember them like gently taking me away from him so that they could work on him. And they were able to get a pulse back. And so then he's in the ambulance, and he's gone to the hospital. And I was just sitting there with all three of my kids,
and the windshield wipers on.
And they're asking me things, and I am just like shaking. I don't know what to do. And I called my mom, and because they were like, you have to go to the hospital. What do you want to do with the kids? And they offered to take them and let me go, but I don't trust anybody with my kids, especially because they have special needs, and it's ingrained. Like, I don't leave them with anybody. They get him into the ICU. but they told me that until he was like all settled or whatever, then I couldn't, or no, it was visiting hours. I couldn't go see him until a certain time. It had to be like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning or something. So then I was just by myself and hadn't slept. And I just went into the emergency like entrance and I fell asleep in a chair. And I just remember like I was completely sideways and just I no, and then so I woke up and it was time and this kind gentleman took me on a golf cart to where I needed to be.
So do they think it was an asthma attack that actually made him stop breathing, or was it still kind of mysterious what was causing all these breathing troubles?
It was an asthma attack that started it. Um, and then, the asthma attack led into cardiac arrest. Immediate cause of death, acute hyperbaric respiratory failure. And then it said, due to or as a consequence of acute asthma exacerbation.
So I'm wondering about, a lot of us have had kids when our partner or our spouse has died, and you've got three kids, two of them who are not neurotypical, who have got disabilities. How was their reaction? How was their response to their dad and their stepdad dying?
So, that whole week that he was in the hospital, um, my family and my friends made sure that everything was as normal as it could possibly be. The boys still went to school. My daughter stayed with my friend who has a daughter her age, and um, they didn't know what to think. It was like immediately missing him, not understanding. But I didn't get to be with them that whole week. I saw the boys. I couldn't face them. I had mentioned that my like his son, the mom was like on the weekends. So 3 years before my husband passed away, she just abandoned him. Like so my middle son, his name is Mason. She just left him. Like she was before that, she would show up like it ended up being more like once or twice a month that she would actually take him. But she was only taking him like a couple times a month at that point, and then with 4 days notice, she just left him and moved to Nebraska. Like no notice, no nothing. Yeah.
Is that legal?
Well, we had a thing in place where it was very specific about pick up and drop off times. So it was like at Friday at 5, we would meet her in Anthem. And so we'd drive. It was like 2 hours round trip, like going there and back. So a lot of times we would go all together. And then Sunday, we'd pick them back up. And so that was kind of how it was supposed to be. And yeah, she just left. Like we had a court order in place, all that stuff. And yeah, she just left.
Did she
And
rescind her parental rights, like officially?
no,
No.
and that's where
Oh,
this gets messy. So we had only been married for that year, and because she hadn't um contacted like at all. She'd say like happy birthday and ask how he was. And that was probably a total in the 3 years, probably like 5 times that she messaged at all. And that was it. Like she didn't she had come down, she had been here and not asked to see him, so it was like so I had a profile that I friended her on. It was a fake Facebook profile. So, because we were like, what is going on? And and she's the type of person who would post everything. So she initially said that she left to join the military, but when she got to Nebraska, she was working at like a gas station, and she has other kids too. She took the other two kids and has had another one.
you guys don't know about that branch of the military. It's the gas station military
Right?
of the United States of America. They sell
Right.
lemon cream pies and gasoline.
They specialize in nacho cheese from a bag.
So yeah, she's like posting selfies of her just like working at a gas station in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. I wanted her to sever her rights, and I wanted to adopt him, or at least become guardian. I wanted something in place, which I hate that I said it out loud, but I would say things like, what if something happened? Like, I would have no rights to him. And I've raised this child for like his entire life. He couldn't even walk when I met him. And it's like, I didn't want anything where I could lose him. And so, so the day my husband dies, she got on a plane and she tried to have her brother who lives here go and pick my child up from school, which he's not on anything. And they knew our entire situation. And because she wouldn't be allowed to pick him up from school. So if she were to show up, they would notify me. And it happens to be the school I work at now. Those front desk, the like attendance ladies, they're amazing people. So so he shows up, and then my mom and my sister-in-law, they couldn't even be there when I withdrew care because they had to go to the school to pull him out of school. They got him out of school, and because my mom is on the list of people who can get him, and we took him over to my friend's house and made it look like he was somewhere else because I couldn't. I was like, why? She just left him for 3 years. Why would she come back here just to like the day he dies? And I needed that night. I went over to my brother-in-law's, and everybody was there, like all of his siblings, and I mean, I hate, except for his parents. They're his parents. They didn't show up like when he died. Before I withdrew care, I got everybody together, and I didn't want to make any decisions by myself because like that's his family. I felt like they needed to be a part of it, and so every step of the process, I involved anybody that wanted to be a part of the process. So his mother and I, we just my husband they weren't speaking when he died. So there was like a whole thing, and she was there at the hospital, and then she brought up, my son, and this was right before the MRI results were happening. And she was outside of the hospital, and I was going in, and she started talking about Mason and about keeping, how my mom and my sister were talking about keeping things as normal as possible and all this stuff. And she was like, he should be with his mom and, whatever. And she chose that time to bring all this stuff up. And I didn't understand, but it turns out she's the one who facilitated and kept Mason's mom in the loop and bought her the plane ticket to come take him from me.
Because technically you don't have rights to him. He's not your child. So she technically has parental rights, even though she had abandoned him for the last several years.
Yes. So really awesome. And I will tell you, I mean, I'm the kind of person, I own up when I do things. When when there is wrongdoing that I have done, I'm the first to be, apologizing or trying to figure it out. And I've never done anything to either of these women. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. The only thing they're Mormon. I don't know, like, so, and I am not. And
I am.
Well, his mother
I won't
hated
steal
me.
any children.
His mother hated me because I was not Mormon, so that was always like a thing, which is funny. Like, she's got 3 boys, and they all have partners who are not Mormon. So I don't know what's up with that, but his older brother, they were born on the same day, 9 years apart, and
Whoa.
he was the first one to get married to somebody outside of the church of her kids, and then Adam, and then we ended up getting married. And so So that was like a whole thing. And then with Mason's mom, she she just, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because I mean, all I did was raise this child like my own. And I can't figure out why she would do what she did to me. Like I had done nothing but be there and be his other parent. I tried
You're
like
killing me, Nicole. Tell me, what happened? Did you
she,
have him or does she have him?
so my
I can
husband
wait
died.
no longer.
She harassed everybody looking for him and made me take my child to the police station the next day.
Hmm.
I got to spend 1 hour with him. One,
Oh.
because I had been at the hospital and then I had been at my brother's house after, and he was at my friend's, and we all met at my mom's house, and I had to meet him. I had to meet there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and uh, my my brother-in-law went with, and he wouldn't even go to her,
Oh man, the
which
poor
was
kid.
heartbreaking because if he had been a typical child, there's no way that would have flown. Like
Oh.
if he had been a typical child, he would, a child would have, screamed or, tried to nothing because he has Down syndrome and because, that's not the way he operates. There was this moment that I had to show her how to take him from me because he wouldn't even go. Like that just, if that doesn't show you right there, like what their relationship was like. And he had one toy, he had nothing. That he lost everything.
Is your son devastated about that too? Because he lost his like little brother and his little buddy and like the person who could kind of share his experience with. It's so
Yeah.
awful for both of them. And
Yeah.
so is he still like, have you been able to see him at all, or has he been totally removed from you?
So, I mean, she tried. So she took him and then um she she just she would text me as I'm like trying to make like arrangements for my husband. She would ask me for things like his birth certificate or his social security card and like all this stuff. And I was just like, at first I just wouldn't answer. I was just like, you're his mom, figure it out. Those are all things you can go and get yourself. And if there was anything that I thought would be like, an issue for him that would prevent him from getting care or anything else, I would have given it to her. But the things she was asking for, I was just like, no, like you took him from his life and you can't expect me to help you right now.
Mm.
And I had just lost my husband. I was not in a place to be helping the person who stole my child as well. So it was like grieving two things at once, like somebody who has left this earth
Yeah.
and someone who is here that I can no longer be a part of their life. So there was like that whole thing. And so months and months went by and um we had there was like a couple video chats in there, but she would always be right there and she was always trying to talk to me rather than let me talk to my son. So it was always awkward, and it was awkward for the kids because, I have to be like, walk on eggshells and, tell them like, don't ask about this because like, I don't want her to get upset, because my daughter, she's very vocal. And so she would be like, does he even like living there? Or, so I was always afraid of what she would say. So, um, it was just kind of awkward. And so every once in a while, I'll text and ask how he's doing or whatever. And she'll answer. But recently she actually came to Arizona because my mother-in-law bought them tickets for her and her kids and this guy that she's with now to come here. And she didn't even tell me that they were coming. I didn't get to see him. And they live like my mother-in-law lives like a mile down the road. So I had to deal with knowing that my son was in the same place and couldn't see him, which again was just the worst. Like And, it's like I've asked myself over and over, like, what did I do like to deserve that kind of treatment? Like I wish I would have done something, It's like one of those where it's like if I'm gonna have to lose a child, and we all go through the anger too when losing a spouse. You're like, what did I do to deserve this in this life? And with my son too, it's just yeah.
It's interesting too because you have a daughter with your deceased husband, and so she's related half sister, right? So the grandma didn't provide an opportunity for a half sister to be with her half brother as well, which seems really hurtful. I'm so sorry. I wish that just saying sorry would fix something, and it doesn't. But what
this is like the only time where I'm like crossing my fingers. I'm like, well, I hope she'll give up her kid. Like I hope she'll abandon him again. That's not like a really,
yeah,
it's not really like a healthy thought, but that's so hard.
And you're grieving all on top of this. Like what?
So he died in 2022. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you're going on about 2 years of this widowed life and not having access to your son anymore. And you're just trying to find your way. Like, how are you being a human on the planet right now?
I can tell you for the first year, I did not work. I was lucky enough where someone set up a GoFundMe to help with all the funeral expenses. And I had a little bit of that left over, which I lived on until I was able to get Social Security for myself and for my daughter. And so it was just like that first year, I didn't do anything. I could barely function. When I was like 9 months pregnant with my son, I had panic attacks back then. And which my first one, I had no idea. We were coming home from a doctor's appointment and I felt like I couldn't breathe. Had no idea that was a thing because until you go through it, nobody really talks about it. It's, and so that's just kind of how that worked. And I never really realized that I had anxiety until, because it's one of those things where until something happens in my life, I realize that's my body's response. And so he had died in August, and November, I got COVID. And so I think it was partly because of PTSD or whatever it was, but I had taken I was stuck in the house and all I had was like nighttime like NyQuil, and that's all I had. And I couldn't get to the store, and so I had just taken this like, oh, it'll at least help, right? And I had my first panic attack since he had died when that happened. So I thought I was having a reaction to what I took but I thought to myself, like, the only difference is it would make me sleepy, right? Like it wouldn't be a big deal because I had done that in the past where like you just take it a little earlier in the day and it's not that big of a deal. So I couldn't figure out what's going on. And my heart started like racing and I got really sweaty and I couldn't, I didn't know what was happening. And so it's kind of shameful, but I called 911.
That's not shameful at all, actually.
No.
Yeah.
You look back on it and I'm like, that was ridiculous. But like, I thought I was, and because of my kids, I was like, I cannot, if there's even a chance that there's something really wrong with me right now, like after everything, I was like, so I called and they showed up and then they informed me that I was having a panic attack. And then there was a good, like 4 months after that where that was a struggle. Like I was having 1 to 2 a week of just panic attacks and it was just awful. And I still deal with anxiety. I mean, we tried doing the thing. I mean, they always want to put you on an antidepressant, right? And I did not react like they put me on one that was supposed to help with depression and anxiety. And I started taking it, and it made the anxiety worse. It was like every day I was waking up, and all day long, it was just this feel. It was like the feeling of like you're going to have a panic attack, but you don't get the release of one. So it was just this whole thing. And so I got off of that. And now to this day, I still carry around like a really, it's like I could take what did she say? It was like it's a mild benzo basically.
Oh
So
yeah, I have those too. Yeah. Hey, I have
yeah.
a question for you. Do you have good support? What's your support system like? How are your
I know your
friends?
mom is there.
Your mom's there. Like, what about the community surrounding your son? Other parents? Like, yeah, who do you have?
So support system. So actually, as far as like blood family members, none. That sister that I told you was down there from California. She kind of stuck around for all of the stuff, and we had reconnected into adulthood. My husband was actually why I reconnected with her in adulthood. So we had kind of a I don't speak to any of my blood relatives. There's a lot of reasons why, but just and then when I needed her the most after my husband died, she, went back to California after the funeral and everything else. And then she just stopped talking to me.
Hmm.
So I lost my one blood relative that I invited back into my life.
Yeah.
And so it's just, and my mom, she's my stepmom technically. That's why I say blood
Wow.
relatives. But she raised me since I was 7, so that's my mom. And I don't have any. My birth mom abandoned me when I was 3.5. So that's another thing why, like my son, raising his son was like, I felt like I was meant to be his mom. It was like I got abandoned by my mom. And so I was like, and then my mom raised me, my stepmom raised me. And then I wanted to do the same for him so that he'd always have a mom. And
Oh
so,
man.
yeah,
Nicole, you have had hurt upon hurt upon hurt. And sometimes it just doesn't seem fair what people are asked to go through. You said something earlier that I want to just kind of bring back, and that is that having a son with a disability has taught you to be an advocate. And I hope that it has also taught you to be an advocate for yourself as well, as you're still kind of a new widow. It's not like you've had a lot of time doing this, but advocate for what you need to heal and to be the best mom that you can be and be the best widow that you can be and find the support that's going to keep you going because it's a lot that you're dealing with. And like Mel said, like saying sorry doesn't do much, but both of us are just like, oh, we're so sorry that this is your journey. And everybody send it out to the universe that your your bonus son's mom and grandma let you back into his life in a meaningful way because that's such a hard thing to deal with. And ugh, I'm so sorry.
it's life. I think all you can do, right, is just keep going. Like everybody talks about, like, I feel like my entire life people have said over and over, like, you're so strong, right? And it's it's like you don't have a choice. It's not about strength. It's about choice. Like I think if anybody had the choice, they wouldn't go through all the trials, that I've been through so far in my life, but you have to do it.
We need to send you back to the beach in San Diego on the 4th of July,
I
back
know.
to the good times.
Well, you know what?
Yes.
I didn't have ashes, but when we first went there, we got the cheesiest little jars that said San Diego and hit and we filled them with sand and shells and things we found on the beach, and they were like this big. And we with my brother-in-law and his wife, we went back to San Diego, and I went back to that beach by myself, and um, I put the sand back because I was like, I don't have ashes, but I have sand.
Oh,
So that's what
yeah.
I did. and that was emotional. And yeah, and that's the other thing. I don't know about. I have a question for you guys.
Oh,
So
okay.
Yes.
so when you retell the stories of like how your husband's passed away, do people ever judge you like by how you tell it? Like when you do you find that people get emotional and you don't? Or do you get emotional every time?
I get emotional 0 times. And I think I've now narrowed it down to kind of a storytelling in bullet points. And sometimes I think people don't quite know how to handle that because I'm pretty factual about it. And maybe if they have had some of their own loss in their own life, they kind of react normally, like how maybe it would be to tell another widow that. But sometimes they don't really know how to respond. So that's my experience. Anita?
Yeah, I was just gonna say most people are just kind of confused because when I talk about it, I don't usually get emotional about the actual how he died. It almost seems like I'm telling somebody else's story. Like it doesn't really seem like it's a real part of my story that it's like a movie I watched and this poor young woman, beautiful, very good looking.
I agree. Very good looking.
Yes. Lost her husband, so just that's how I kind of see it when I tell it. And I do get some strange responses, kind of like, well, you can tell that without getting emotional. Some people like Mel, like, I don't know how to take that. Some people respond like Mel said, like, they don't know how to take that. I get more emotional when I look back at pictures and things like that that remind me that that story is my story and is not just some, movie that I've seen. So, yeah. Did that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, because I've gotten that where I'm not like Mel. I think it's like now like in bullet points and like that's just and I think just I always get this thing where like I've had so many people start crying and
Yes,
and then
because your
I
story
don't.
is really sad, Nicole.
Well, I don't, and then it's awkward, and then people just like they're like I have somebody
Yeah,
crying in front of me, and I'm just like,
patting them on the head.
There,
Well,
there.
it makes sense though, because you have had time to really kind of process that. And of course, you've cried over it. It's not like you don't have any feelings about it, but you've had more time to kind of sit with the reality of it.
Yeah.
So
And to
that kind of,
tell the story, like Anita and I have talked so much about it, it's almost like it's not real, even though it is.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
true, true.
Oh
Um,
man, Nicole, thank you so much for sharing your story. And we just wish you continued healing as you go through the widowhood journey. Mel has an important question to ask you.
The best question of the podcast, hopefully. Just kidding. What's your favorite cheese?
my favorite cheese?
Do you like
Ooh,
cheese? Can you
I
eat cheese?
love cheese. I
Okay.
love cheese. Oh, that's a really tough one though. Hey, I need you to get out of here, please. Sorry, this is my daughter. She's trying to get in on this.
Hi. We're almost done.
Almost done. Hey,
We could ask her favorite cheese too.
yeah, what's your favorite cheese? Cheddar cheese.
Cheddar cheese.
Yes.
Sharp cheddar cheese.
Smart
This
girl.
is a 6-year-old who knows what she likes. I love it.
She knows everything about what she likes.
Oh, wait.
Oh, it muted.
We've lost you.
Or we lost you. It's really quiet.
I'm telling you, the universe. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We're just all trying to figure out widow
We
do.
now. This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks. And so you don't have to pay extra for that. And you still get great service.
Yep. Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it. And my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys, such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.